Made it through half the day at CornCon. All right, all right. I am pleased to announce returning speaker, Ken Smith. He's going to give a great talk of Behind the Curtain from Zero to Hero, even though that's not his name.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thank you to CornCon and the staff and everybody. This is become one of my favorites. So I'm thrilled to be talking to you today about a topic that I have a great deal of passion for. So we're gonna talk about training and what it takes to train the people who are going to be doing the training. I got a clicker. Oh, sweet. Okay. So just up front, I mean, if you saw my title, I'm Director of Sales Engineering at Arctic Wolf. This is not a sales talk, and we're not here to sell you training because Arctic Wolf doesn't do that. I spent a decade in higher ed. I ran L&D for an offensive security firm about a year ago, which is really the genesis of this particular talk. And I wanted to highlight what the participants don't see. The process that kind of goes on behind the curtain, right? And it's not really about what we taught. It's really more about how we got there and our process from going from start to finish. And then ultimately building out a playbook for coaching your technical experts and turning them into teachers. It's tough to see because I'm already blind with the light. Any educators in the room by chance? Anybody in education? Oh, awesome, fantastic. Cool, good. All right, a couple, that's wonderful. So, self-taught educator here, so please ask questions, interrupt me if you've got things to say or what not to share, because your insight would be appreciated. Just very briefly about me, I already mentioned I'm at Arctic Wolf. My name is Ken Smith. I'm formerly Director of L&D at an offensive security firm, like I mentioned. Before that, I ran the cyber testing team at a very large consulting firm. Spent some time on a red team at a large a large bank, and got my start as a signals intelligence operator in the USASOC community. I mentioned the time spent in academia, 10 years at the University of Mount Union, just stepped away. It's like a 90-minute drive from Cleveland where I live, and it was just getting to be a little too much with a couple of kids at home. And a couple of years at SANS as well, working with graduate students, which was a whole lot of fun. So right now, I would consider us in a somewhat golden age of training when it comes to InfoSec. I feel like every other week there's a new labs being stood up somewhere delivering training. So it may beg the question, like, why put in the time and effort to create training? Well, first, in the role I was in, it was revenue generation. Like, I wanted to get out and sell training and contribute to the company's bottom line. That was huge. It was also then partly about my just own personal passion for this stuff. I will stay up late at night, noodle on computers, but also build coursework. I'm not even teaching actively, but I will still try to keep my courses up to date because it's just fun. And then thirdly, it's also really, really good career builder for your folks that are younger and just getting started. If they got a particular passion area that they want to explore and they're doing the presenting and they're getting out there, the next natural step is get in front of a classroom and having them teach something and build something. So that's the why behind a lot of this. So the goal here originally, again, the birth of this talk was I was in my previous role running L&D. I wanted to get us in the classroom at BlackHat and DefCon. And the original strategy was to lean into the expertise of the firm. They had a world-class IoT and hardware hacking group, and they were pretty well known for their CI/CD content. They had sent a couple speakers to BlackHat and a couple speakers to DefCon the prior year, and thought these are our two areas of strength. That's where we're going to get in front of people. And so, spoiler alert, it happened. Like, it worked out. It was great. We got accepted to both. The IoT went to DefCon and actually hacked SpaceCon, which I'll come back to a little bit later. But then the pipeline class, the CI/CD class, also went to BlackHat. So again, not to put the cart before the horse, but this actually did lead somewhere, which was pretty cool. But when we were getting started, there were a lot of initial considerations we wanted to take into account. First off, and now I'm going to kind of turn this around, as you're doing this, what does your team actually do? Are you in the red hat side of things, or excuse me, are you in the red side of things? Are you in the blue side of things? Are you in DevOps, DevSecOps? It doesn't matter, right? What's your expertise? Start there. It's great to try new things, to learn new things, and to explore, but if you're just breaking into the training and the teaching space, go with what you know. Another really important consideration is what are your timelines, and not just the length of the course, whether it's a 4-hour workshop, a 2-day class, or whatever, but how much time do you have to develop it? How much time do you have to actually get the submissions ready, and what goes into account there? And then also whether or not you want to do CPE credits. I have found the CPE requirements in ISACA and ISC squared and all of those, they're all pretty unified while being incredibly nebulous as well. But making sure that you know whether or not you want to be handing out those certificates and saying, hey, you can submit this and renew your CISP and all that, know that ahead of time as well. And then there's the people element. Obviously you want people with prior experience in the technical pieces that you're going to teach, but how about teaching experience? And if you have anybody that you can loop in to help train up your team members to do this work is really important. The frequency of your development sessions. So I was working for a consulting company doing this, and time is money. I would get them for 30 minutes a week, and all the rest I kind of had to shoulder and take on. So that's something to consider as well. If you, as the coach of the teachers, are out of your depth, you're going to have to know when and how to pull them in at the right time. And then look to get others involved as well. So it's not just about the people then you're teaching to give the class, but if you've got grumpy industry veterans, lean into them for the technical content. Right? Pull them in when you got to build exercises or try new things or interesting things. When you need the work done, last minute or not, if you've got eager interns or brand new hires that want to learn this stuff, throw them on some of that work as well. Again, this is a huge career builder for a lot of the folks in that space as well. And then when it comes to submissions, it's not all or nothing. And we submitted 5 total classes to BlackHat and those same 5 classes to DefCon, and got 1 accepted at each. So this is very much a shoot for the moon, land among the stars type situation, or take a buckshot approach, and whatever gets through, gets through. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I've got analogies for days, apparently. But try more is less, right? Stuff the ballot box. You do, though, want to tailor your submissions. So as we'll get to in a couple of slides, start with the most robust submissions and kind of pare down from there. And ultimately, that then becomes your content library for going out and getting your submissions out there. So it's really, we took a 5-step process to actually putting the content together. The first step was whiteboarding. I got once we determined, hey, we're going to do CI/CD, we're going to do IoT, and I'll probably stick with CI/CD as I talk through this. I got our experts in the room, the 4 that I wanted to take with me to BlackHat and teach, and said, we're going to teach a class, it's going to be 2 days, we're going to BlackHat. What do we need? What do we need to teach? What are the things we need? And just open whiteboard session. These were the longest sessions, but it was important. We want to go wide at this part because it is way easier to cut content either during the development process or even live and say, we don't get enough time, we're going to skip over that. You don't want to be in a position where you're ready to start a 2-day class and you've only got a day and a half of content and you realize that the night before. So always go wide. Especially early, there are no bad ideas. If someone says something, capture it on the whiteboard and start soft organizing them, putting them together. Nothing formal at this point. But it is a very useful exercise to go, hey, let's circle back. Let's cover this topic. What else are we missing? And just start picking brains. Again, it's no bad ideas at this point. You don't want to think about the delivery time constraints, but you do want to consider your audience. So once you've got a whole whiteboard full of stuff, then double back and say, okay, now our audience in this case, going to BlackHat, are experts. We can probably cut or maybe not lean in too much of the introductory content. We don't have to talk so much about what is GitHub, right? What is GitLab? And we can kind of shelve some of that content at the beginning. Step 2 is the outline. So we've got a giant whiteboard full of stuff, and use whatever platform that you see fit. I like physical whiteboards, and so I started there, and then we would take pictures and virtualize it and do some organization. But step 2 in the outline is you want to focus on your learning objectives first. So based on what you got on your outline, based on your audience and where you're going and all of that, create your learning objectives. You want them to be verb-based, action-oriented. You want them to be specific and measurable, and then of course they have to be achievable. They have to be realistic. So this one at the bottom here was pulled out of a course syllabus from my teaching days a while ago, but by the end of the course, participants will be able to compromise several web application platforms through the exploitation of common misconfigurations. So it's measurable, and then it's a binary, like are they able to achieve that or not, yes or no. And then we would test that. It was realistic. So when you're coming up with learning objectives, stick to these frameworks, and you build your outline around those. As far as the actual construction of the outline goes, make sure you're working in chunks. Again, you're coming from this giant explosive, word cloud of nonsense that has been soft organized into areas. Take each one of those areas a chunk at a time. Don't be afraid to rearrange, add content as you go. Try to avoid removing content outright, but if you want to shuffle it to the back and say, if we have time, that's an okay thing to do. And at this point, you want to coach your teachers, your instructors, to start kitchen tabling their content. What I mean by that is I'm not a big fan of dress rehearsals for this type of stuff. But tell them, hey, as you're going through and working through your outline, act as if you're teaching it. Like, you got your outline in front of you, just start talking to yourself as if you're giving the course and reading off the content. They'll start to internalize a lot of the anecdotes they wanna include, jokes they're gonna tell, and then they also will catch themselves, oh, I didn't talk about this yet, I gotta go back and double on that. It's a really, really useful exercise, and I'll bring it up several more times before we get done. The other thing here is in the outline, leave placeholders for any points of interactivity. And what I mean by that is discussions, tabletops, thought exercises, hands-on exercises. Don't go down that rabbit hole yet. It's really tempting if you have any kind of technical background or that's your thing. It's really easy to get sucked in and go, oh, I want to design an exercise where we're going to find credentials and we're going to use those to get into the web app, and wow, I'm going to start building the web app, and it will immediately derail you from the content. Like, build the content first, then worry about the exercises. It's really important to separate those. I speak from experience where I get through this awesome exercise and realize I've got a day of content for a 2-day class because I was so excited about that one particular exercise. Don't forget in your outline too the boring class stuff. So the introductions, not just for yourself and your instructors, but for the company, the students, having them introduce themselves. Again, I'm assuming this is live content we're giving at a conference. This is really, really useful. Don't skip over it, because you also identify, and we're skipping ahead to kind of the coaching the teacher's point, but you identify your talkers early on. So if you get a student that starts to give their background and dive in, you're like, okay, this person's a talker, we can lean on them. Or you find the folks that have relevant experience to whatever it is you're teaching, you can use them as the bounce off point later in the classroom and say, hey, you ever seen this before? Okay, no, well, let's move on to over here. Like, that's more of a teaching strategy than anything, but if it's not in the slides, if it's not in the content, you're gonna forget to do it. So throw it in there. Your agenda, and then also like a why are you here type of slide as well. Good to include up front. This stuff takes time, and it is an important part of the course, so don't forget to include that in your outline as well. Again, the technical stuff can kind of suck up our attention, but this is important stuff as well. So once we have a working outline, we move into the what I call the final outline. Here's the first point that I would recommend taking a look at an LLM of choice. If it, whether you're a ChatGPT person or a Claude person, whatever. But be specific. I strongly recommend don't start your outline here with the LLM. Don't go to Gen AI until you've got, if a 2-day class, a 20-page outline. Be very specific in your prompting. Hey, here's my outline for a 2-day course. I'm going to teach this, and this is going to be my target audience. Here's my learning objectives. Take the full outline. What have I missed? Please don't remove anything I've included. Don't change the order without asking. You can get down that rabbit hole and it can cause problems, but I have found it will catch stuff and make reasonable recommendations, which is good to have. You also, it's a good idea to ask it, if I'm missing any points of interactivity, please make some recommendations. All those are trained on what's already out there, so if you can pull and be creative and get ideas, it's a really, really good use case for LLMs. Speaking of points of interactivity and exercises, at this point you should probably also be considering how you're going to handle any technical exercises you're doing. Start to think through your requirements. Is this enough that you're going to need a cloud-based lab? Can you just go the home lab-based? What in between? What do you need? Because that will also be a major time sink when it comes to the preparation of all your materials and getting this in working order and in front of people. So once we're comfortable, once everybody, not just you, but your instructors are comfortable with the final outline and you feel like you've got everything you need, at this point it's okay. Move on to the development of the exercises and again, what I call the points of interactivity. it doesn't just have to be hands-on. Most of it should be hands-on in the lab. Again, depending on what you're teaching, you want that. But don't discount the opportunities for discussions, tabletop or thought exercises, and then even the hands-on stuff can be follow along with me type hands-on exercises. They can be one-off challenges, or they can be capstone, capture the flag type stuff. But have a plan going into this phase as to what you actually want to conquer. And then to circle back on the CPE requirements, general rule when we're approaching something like this is four points of interactivity for every hour of content. So I'm thinking specifically for remote training, for example. If you have an hour of remote lecture, God forbid, you have an hour of lecture uninterrupted, you're going to want 4 questions. And I don't remember off the top of my head if it's IC squared or ISAC or one of the others, but it's a spelled out requirement that if you're going to do 50 minutes of content, you need 4 points to make sure that they're just not letting it play in the background while they're cleaning house or washing their dog or whatever. They have to prove that they were in front of the laptop, and that's what's important about this is you have to be able to the defensible position for not getting put under a microscope by one of these, the CPE approving boards is you have to have something that's defensible. So if you can say, they turned in this assignment, we did it in class, that's defensible. But for something remote, if you're doing remote training, you got to be able to point to, we did these polling exercises, we asked these questions, and here was their response, right or wrong, which usually doesn't matter. They don't have to get it right, they just have to be present. When you're actually getting into exercise creation, obviously, again, this is my favorite part. This is why I got started. This is why a lot of folks that train in this space get started. Is it's fun to build this stuff. Do you have a lab? And again, what are the requirements? We have already established things at this point. What you need from a technical perspective. But there's lots of options out there. How slick do you want it to look? How easy do you want it to be? What are you willing to pay for? What can you pay for? What can your company pay for? All of that is under consideration. I started with a home lab. I taught the university class out of a Proxmox machine in my basement and with a firewall, and did that for 10 years, and it worked great. If I could go back and do it now, I'd probably be looking for a nicer platform, right? But you can do this stuff in AWS, or there's Simpire put on the CTF today. We're going to be putting it on tomorrow together. But there's Immersive Labs, there's SimSpace, there's all kinds of really solid platforms. Just pick one and run with it and own it. The more real world and relatable you can make your exercises, the better. I got started because we were getting college students, and the job I was at the time, we were hiring college students in with network security degrees, with computer science degrees, and couldn't do the work. It took another 6 months to get them spun up and running, so I thought, well, if I get into a college program and teach them what we're doing as pen testers day in and day out, then they can go out into the market and get hired and get jobs. So try to take that approach. My recommendation is take that approach when you go and teach this stuff. Speaking of which, the model, the general flow of content that I'd like to use is teach, show, and do. So by that I mean you first introduce a concept and you talk them through it. Screenshots, hey, this is, if we're gonna compromise an Apache Tomcat server. I'll show pictures of this is a Tomcat web server, and this is a typical Tomcat web app, and if you can get to the manager application, and this is what this looks like, and here's what the upload function looks like, and we go through a compromise. Then we'll do it live, whether it's a video or an actual live demonstration, we'll do that. But we'll tweak some things. So if the show said, well, this is what it looks like with the Windows box, maybe the teach is a Windows box, maybe we'll do the show with a Linux box. And then we say, okay, now go and do this. And we change some other things. So maybe the credentials change, or maybe we switch it back to the Windows machine. But tweaking things just enough where they actually have to think about these exercises and not just rote stepping through each piece of it. The step 5, and really the final bit here in the development process, is the slides. And I use this term as a catch-all for everything that you're putting together in terms of the actual learning material. Participant guides, instructor guides, any supplemental materials, all of this stuff is really important. And I'm going to come back to the participant guide. We saw firsthand with the IoT class that ended up at DefCon, but we originally took to Hack SpaceCon. Having that step-by-step exercise guide really helped to balance out the students that knew what they were doing and zipped through everything, and the folks that were way on the back end and had, maybe had turned a computer on once in their life but wanted to take an IoT class. The step-by-step guide, really, really huge difference. Instructor guide is for when you're not teaching it, or your teachers, your current crop of teachers aren't teaching it anymore. You don't want the class to die in the vine. You want to be able to update it over time. Also really, really important. Here, not a bad idea to lean into your LLM of choice. Again, time saver. This I can't recommend enough. It used to take, when I stood up a couple different classes at the university I was at, and I would take a whole summer to do the development piece, and a huge chunk of that was just converting my ideas on the outline into slides. And now I can send a 20-page outline into ChatGPT or into Claude or whatever and say, hey, I want PowerPoint slides for this. Please generate it. I will share that I have, do I have a slide on this? Yeah, so as of today, right now, if you just ask for it straight up, you'll get pretty basic deck, black text on white background. I've had some success supplying like a template set of slides and saying, please build this outline into these slides. I will say that it tends to go off the rails after too much back and forth, and I'm pretty conversational when it comes to the AI component. No, I don't like that, change this, I don't like that. But with PowerPoint, I have found that it's not great back and forth. I'm speaking specifically about ChatGPT and Copilot here. So what I typically do is I will actually have it generate Markdown for me and then use something like Pandocs in the command line to convert it to slides. The formatting just seems to get a little better. And then I'll use PowerPoint's built-in design feature, which is also AI-driven, to make keep the consistency, applying the templates and all of that. So again, as a time saver, you might take 3 weeks of converting all your stuff into a class and do it in a couple of hours. So at the end of the process, what you actually end up with, or what you should end up with, the actual course content, slides, exercises, your lab exercises, the instructor participant guides for all the exercises, your infrastructure stood up. Again, this is going to be platform dependent. But then we circle back on the submission piece. Now, if this is something net new you're developing and going to submit it, chances are the submission happens about halfway between your initial development and the actual due date for when you're going to teach the course. But in that bucket of submission materials, you should have a syllabus, which will have your long and short form abstracts, your learning objectives, the full course outline, and then hopefully some answers to some common call for training questions out there. What are the students going to get out of this? Who's your ideal student? What does the student need to bring? What extra equipment do you need in the classroom in order to teach this successfully? Those are the kind of things that will come up again and again and again, so it's just good to have those answers preloaded. So now that we've had our submissions, we want to tailor some of these to our events that are both big and small. Right? A lot of the events are going to post their expectations, their themes, superhero themes, right, for CornCon this year. Do your best to tailor your baseline submissions to each of them. LLMs can be a huge help here, but again, make sure review everything that goes out the door. Your name's attached to it. Your people's names are attached to that. You don't want any kind of crazy hallucination soiling any of that. It is a really good idea to go above and beyond. So if a submission asks for a hand set of slides and it's a 2-day course, give them a full day worth of slides if you have it. If it asks for an email with all of your stuff, attach a PDF to it. Just every little bit seems to help, especially when you're getting into the bigger conferences. And then over time, your more robust submissions, like the BlackHat submission, which I'll talk about in a second, become your library that you can then just pare down and send off to other CFPs as well. So BlackHat's submission to date for me is the most robust that I've encountered. Obviously, they've got a huge training set, multiple events throughout the year, multiple calls for trainings, and once you're in, you're in. It is a very, very specific and well understood process by the folks that are involved. I had nothing but a positive experience going through with this. They have a dedicated training website. You log in, you add your presenter bios. It was very easy for one person overseeing this to coordinate multiple submissions and all of that, which I really appreciated. The teaching material samples, you had to have intended audience, your learning objectives all up front. There were a lot of uploads that then were kind of attached piecemeal to it, but again, no emails back and forth, just all through the portal. Loved the experience there. And obviously, there's a lot of recognizable established players who consistently put their training out through BlackHat. So if you're looking at it from more of a business perspective, it's not a great revenue generator because there is quite a bit taken off that goes to Black Hat, but it's a great way to get around there with some of the bigger players in the training industry. DEF CON was similar in that they have multiple events, multiple calls for training. It's not as robust as Black Hat. The timeline, obviously, for DEF CON in Vegas is similar to Black Hat US. In fact, that's why we even submitted. I had gone through the process to submit our courses to Black Hat and went, oh, like this process is a lot easier, so we're just going to reuse what we did for Black Hat and send them to DEF CON. It's also much less of a formal process. It was an email. So we went from very, very prescribed process for the Black Hat submissions to being just emails back and forth with DEF CON. Now that being said, they accept seemingly way fewer submissions, which was neat to then get to be a part of that. Just based on quickly looking into it, they do about 20 to 40 acceptances every year. Again, the best I can tell, whereas Black Hat, I mean, there's dozens of options when they start opening those up for all of their different events. Now, don't discount the little guys. The regional trainings like a CornCon are awesome opportunities to get your training out there when you have the opportunity. We, as I mentioned, we took our IoT class to Hack SpaceCon at the Kennedy Space Center in May, so months in advance. But it gave us a chance to get the folks who were teaching it, who had never taught before, smaller classroom setting, smaller attendance, but it gave them a chance to kind of find their feet, which was great. But there are other options out there. ThoughtCon in Chicago has workshop options, which are fantastic. We did same company, we did an AI workshop there for one of their 2-hour slots. The B-Sides conferences, a lot of them consistently look for training options. I plug B-Sides Cleveland here because it's happening next week and I'm on the board. So if you're in the area, come hang out. If you're looking for opportunities, Sessionize and CTF time, or excuse me, CFP time, we'll put out opportunities to submit for training as well. And then there's always OWASP, InfraGuard, as is. Like all of these organizations are consistently looking for people to come in and do training, not just presentations, but to actually get hands-on with stuff. So again, shoot for the moon, aim for Black Hat, aim for DEF CON, but don't forget about all the littler options that are out there as well. So once you're accepted, I mean, chances are you're still, not too terribly far into the submission or into the creation process. So focus heavily, when you get that acceptance email, focus heavily on making sure your content and your exercises are locked in. You want to make sure that you have all the technical expertise required, because at this point you should be leaning more into the folks who are going to be delivering the training. Right? Have them continue to kitchen table their content and start to build their own talk tracks around this stuff. Your pacing and flow should be locked in. It's really, really hard for people that don't present often to figure out exactly how long it's going to take them to talk through something. So you want them to have to vamp. It is easier to cut content in the moment, but make sure have their jokes preloaded ahead of time, their anecdotes preloaded ahead of time, and hammer home that the first time you do this, you're going to rush through it. It's just going to happen. Whether it's fear, whether it's excitement, you're gonna have 2 days of material that you're gonna deliver in a day and maybe 3/4 of a day. So keep that in mind. And as far as the labs go, participant guides, they're absolutely necessary. They'll keep hammering that home. But then from the technical perspective, have redundancy, resilience, and fallback plans built into your lab stuff, because things are going to go wrong. So have backup, have 2 or 3 backup builds, and if one of the machines goes down, have a second route in. And I'm speaking specifically here about like red team and attack type stuff, but it works just the same across the board. Plan for scale. So as an example, for the high school CTF that just took place this morning, we had 100 people come this morning to register. And thankfully, the tool is built for scale, but the sign-up process took us a second to play catch-up with and all of that. So, those types of things are going to happen. And then if there are demos, record them in advance. And if they don't work live, you just be able to pivot right to the video. But that's a presentation piece in and of itself. All right, when it comes to coaching your future teachers and your current SMEs, right, note that you, as a supervisor of these folks, you don't have to be the expert in everything. Recognize that deep technical expertise in a particular area does not always translate to teaching skill. Right? There's the facilitators pieces of it. You got to be able to control a classroom. You have to be able to be confident and come to the table with public speaking, and recognize that giving a speech and teaching a class are 2 completely different forms of public speaking. Right? And then just confidence building. There, folks in this space, there's a lot of us are introverts, right? So you have to get people kind of out of their comfort zone. I'm not a really big fan of live rehearsals, as I mentioned before. It just translates to a lot of wasted time. Again, if you're in the consulting space, like I need to give this 2-day class, but we're going to take 4 days to rehearse it and get ready for it. It's probably not going to fly. So if you can, do chunks. Do little chunks of rehearsals and make sure that they're comfortable going into it. That can really be a confidence builder. As far as other LLM type stuff goes, we covered some of this. Using it as a collaborative partner, I have found to be the most effective way to use it. Treat it as a partner, not as a vending machine. It's great for brainstorming. It's great for drafts, scenario variations. But you got to review everything, right? That's non-negotiable. Hallucinations are going to happen, and they're not always super obvious. We were putting together a cloud class at the tail end of, well, I guess the tail end of the spring, and it's an AWS class specifically. And we were playing around with Claude and ChatGPT, just trying to really just to see like, hey, what is it going to give us? We did the same prompt to all these different options, and two of the three that we were really leaning into came back with Azure stuff, and it just like switched mid outline from AWS material into Azure. And if we weren't paying attention, like we would have gone down that whole road without realizing it. So we wasted a lot of time. So check for accuracy, check for timing. I have found that it's the AI's estimation of how long it's going to take to cover something can be wildly off. And again, for people that are just getting into teaching and presenting even, that can be a problem where they're thinking it's going to take 5 minutes because that's what the LLM said, but really, nah, this is more of a 15-minute conversation. And just make sure your experts are involved the whole time, because I'm not a cloud person, and so I had to make sure that the folks that were going to be teaching that class were riding shotgun and reviewing everything from a technical perspective. So in summary with LLMs, the strengths were ideas generation, but not verification. Multiple explanation levels. So if you have a class that you're intending to teach to experts, and then you're going to teach it a second time to college students or a high school level, I have found some success in having the various LLMs help me. Like I want to teach this to a younger audience, or I want to teach this to a more complicated audience, and I've had success there. The accuracy gaps, the timing, voice consistency, I continue to have problems there. So the takeaway is, AI is a tool. Use it to help speed up your process, but the humans are going to help you ensure the authenticity and accuracy of your material. All right, so to cap all this off, the things to emphasize during development are your cadence, leaning into your strengths, and making sure that you're tailoring each of your submissions to the specific call for trainings that you're putting it out there for. What you don't want to do during development is overemphasize AI. I should have had a bullet up here for that. Turn in something late. Like that's not a good look right out of the gate. And chances are, if you're not a big name, you're probably not going to make it. De-emphasizing the labs and participant guides. Then those are super important for a strong, successful class. So to recap, start with your goal. Know where you want to hit. What are the big events that you want to take your training to? Follow this process up through acceptance. Chances are you'll still be building it after you get accepted. When it comes to delivery, make sure that your folks are prepared. Make sure that they're confident. Make sure that they've been doing their own personal rehearsals. And then just throw that content into your personal library for future submission and use. Don't forget about those regional and local events and using those to help skill up your trainers on their presentation skills, play testing material, play testing exercises. And again, when it comes to Gen AI, LLMs, efficiency is really the name of the game, not the content itself. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, one of my favorite places to be. Thank you for being here. It's not a super technical talk, which is something a little different for me, but I appreciate the eyes on, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much. And if there's any questions, we're a few minutes early, so I'm going to hang around. I'll be here, but if not, the happy hour I think is starting, so I'll be there not too long after. Thanks again.